So, hello, this is the first big one that I really feel massively called to share about empathy and what it means to be an empath, how this is actually a spiritual gift, but is only brought on by going through the mental health journey of relinquishing trauma and understanding what is going on in ourselves, the understanding first time that the mental health journey is the direction to the spiritual journey, and that they are one and the same, that they have similar and the same words for the same concepts. So we've got auras, we've got fields, electromagnetic fields, and we've got the microbiome. These are words that are interchangeable with what they're actually trying to talk about, what they're actually trying to explain, and I'm going to go into that. And I'm also going to go into sensitivity and awareness and how we can deal with this need to become more sensitive and how we can adapt with that, with this world that is not geared up for sensitivity, but it is pushing us towards sensitivity at the same time. And then I also want to talk about the non-verbal communication that we do, that is everything but what we say, and how this is the way that we communicate through empathy, through emotions, and through energy. This is another part that we'll come into about science and how this links into spirituality, which is the understanding that we have mirror neurons, and these are exaggerated in neurodivergence, one which I am, and which you will notice that I will fumble up on my words every now and again, because I am more geared to being empathic, talking with my energy. So let's get started. So I have felt called to share all of my learning about empathy and about being an empath and what this really means. And this is all based on, my own personal experience, and through doing a MSc Masters in clinical psychology, and through going on a really intense spiritual journey to understand myself and why everything has been so hard. Why is everything hard? And I think there's a lot of us that are continuing to ask ourselves this question in this societal world. I mentioned I'd fumble on my words. That we are finding it more and more difficult. More and more people are more sensitive, more difficult, more sensitivity, more empathy, but also not being able to have the space or the knowledge or the education and the understanding to be able to be the empathic and beautiful singing creatures that we are. So empathy is when you can feel and you get a sense from someone that something is happening, in the basics and convoluted way of explaining it. The understanding that someone is sad, someone looks sad, and they don't tell you that they're sad, but you feel like you can feel their emotional expression in your own body. You feel that when you're looking at them, they are talking to you. You feel that there is something else happening, this extra communication that is going on without there being any need for talking. And that is, in a nutshell, empathy. And empathy is, or the ability to be empathic, is this clairsentience. So, and this is a spiritual gift that is There are many Claires, clairvoyant, others that we forget about, but I will post those, and I'm going to post them now in a little picture. Ta-da! There we go. These clairs are the spiritual gifts that we can go through, that everybody can get to. Everybody has capacity to be able to experience these clairs, special clairs. But for the process of this video, I'm just going to talk about clairsentience, because clairsentience is the empathy, the empaths, the people that feel more and experience more in life based on feeling. And this is a spiritual gift, it's part of awakening. But so this is part of what spirituality says is an empathic ability. But what we've got from science is that when you are feeling empathy, which anyone can, and it's when you become an empath and you feel like you can read other people's thoughts, feelings, emotional expressions, and you understand them, that's when it becomes clairsentience, or you become an empath. It's like this ability to not turn it off and on. Whereas empathy is just something that it's not really a bother. You know, with everything in science or psychology or therapy, it's not about how like necessarily your full experience of it, but how much it bothers you and how much it affects you and how much you struggle, or how much you feel to it, how much you relate to it. So in science, coming on is their expression of empathy is that we have in our brain, we have these things called mirror neurons, and it's what we develop in order to grow as a human, from being a little baby to being the fully fledged human that we are. When we're a baby, in order to make sense of the world, we copy and we mirror, and we do what our parents do, because if we didn't do what our parents did, if we didn't follow, we wouldn't know how to make sense of the world. This is our primary way to understand how we use our body, is how we communicate is we watch our parents. So, you know, the mum and the dad constantly saying to the baby, can you, excuse me, constantly burping at the baby, can you burp, baby? Or saying, mama, can you say mama, 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 mama? And then constantly repeating this, so that it's training the baby, or using the hands with the spoons, using this, and it's activating the mirror neurons in the brain and telling the baby this is what you need to imitate in order to learn how to be a human. So and we all have these mirror neurons, and they continue on in adulthood. And what they think now is that we have, you know, people have different brains. We have different sized brain areas. Our brains are entirely different from one to the next. And scientists believe now that everybody has different amounts of mirror neurons. So when you get someone that has a lot of mirror neurons, that they think what is involved when someone is hurt or when someone is in pain, the person with more empathy or an empath has more mirror neurons, and their more mirror neurons enables their brain to connect up and wire the different parts of their brain, or components inside their brain, that links their feelings to their thoughts, links to their vision, to seeing the other person, to thinking and to feeling it in their body. What did they do? And they see and they feel in the same way as if it was within themselves. So when looking at someone else, instead of as the empath looks at the person in pain, instead of the baby looking at the mum saying, "Can you say mama?" the empath looks at the person in pain, and the mirror neurons fire in the exact same way to say, "I can feel what's happening there. I can feel it." And this is what scientists believe, as we are community and social creatures, that this was developed so that we could help each other, so that we could care for each other, so that we could learn and love, accept, help, and support each other. Empathy is designed to help and care for each other, which is beautiful. This is a part of the beautiful expression of being human. Now, another part is that those who are neurodivergent, autism, ADHD, dyslexic, are shown to have more mirror neurons. And that is why, with all of the other difficulties that arise with autism and ADHD, this can feel really overwhelming, because it can feel like you're constantly feeling from people around you, and you're constantly picking up these mirror signals that you should be replicating or repeating what other people are going through without containing or remaining as part of yourself. We're picking up signals, which helps me come into my next part. So, non-verbal communication is empathy. And this is one that I haven't heard or seen other people bridge together just yet, which I'm really excited to share with. These are my brain thinkings. So, non-verbal communication, which is your tone of voice, it is your body language, it is your facial expression, it is your inflections. So it's everything that is not the words, the verbal, the actual words that are coming out of the mouth. It is everything else. And what this means to me in terms of what I've been researching and what I've been feeling in my experience and in reading is that this is what gives feeling. This is what gives us that extra level of communication. And it's mind-blowing when you think that only 20%, and this is a really common thing that they've told us a lot in psychology, is that 20% of communication is verbal. 80% of communication is non-verbal. 80% of communication is everything else. Yet we completely rely on only the words that people say. So many people have such a problem with understanding the emotions and the non-verbal communication that is the main way that we communicate. And that's mind-blowing, right? Because we are not taught how to really interpret 80% of our communication. So if 80% of our communication is based on feeling, it's based on how you feel when you're listening to me talk, it's based on how you feel when I move my hands, on how I express, it's based on my smile, it's based on how I'm talking now and what this means to you, and maybe it's just really flat and maybe you quite like it, but maybe it's something else. And this is the whole other world of communication that people have forgotten about. And this is the I may be going on a tangent, but the feminine aspect of life is feeling. And if you're cutting out the feeling of life and how you're supposed to feel when you're talking to someone, or how you're supposed to feel when you're talking at all, or how you're supposed to feel when you're just existing, like that's cutting out empathy. That's cutting out this 80% of communication that maybe you're not even feeling with yourself if you talk to yourself. This 80% of communication, this talking with feeling, is based on the energy that we're feeling inside. So as you see, when I went really, really flat, feels really weird. It doesn't feel right. There's this extra sense of I don't want to talk like that. I don't like it. I doubt other people liked it too. I much prefer to be a bit more bouncy. It feels better. So that's me communicating with myself, and then communicating with what you feel, or what you feel like you're feeling when you're listening to me. It's a really common theme in this video is about feeling. And so the main points is that nonverbal communication, 80% of how we communicate is through feeling. And yet we rely on the words, solely rely on the words of generally what people are saying. When people say, I'm fine, we let them be. We don't inquire. And sometimes when people say, I'm fine, and we inquire because they're just, I'm fine, there's something more going on. And this is when it gets really, really tricky, because people can say, I'm fine, and they want you to inquire, and they want to literally control and manipulate based on just saying, I'm fine. And you have to pick your battles. Because the energy, the energy that's coming off of them, like, is it just sad? Is it deceiving? Is it manipulative? Is it sad and victimizing? Is it attacking? Like, there is so many ways for people to say I'm fine that I am sure every single one of us has experienced the degrees to which is I'm fine. 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 That one was supposed to be crying. But this is different ways to understand the same words. I hope I'm getting it across that this is when empathy kicks in. This is when empathy comes to understand, what were you just saying? What was the person actually saying? What was the 20% was I'm fine, and what was the 80% coming behind it that is the energy of that person? And one person's energy is not just sad, happy, disgusted, angry, like inside out emotions. We are so much more complicated than that, and we have such much bigger emotional spectrums and complexities with having so many emotions at one particular time, that this is when it gets confusing. So before I go on to the next bit, a bit about how the empathy comes across. So we talked a bit about the non-verbal communication, and this is what you feel. But like, how do you get that feeling a bit more? How do you get that feeling? You get it from people's, and these are the three terms that I mentioned: the aura, the electromagnetic biofield, and the microbiome. Get those two mixed up. microbiome, electromagnetic biofield. Yes. These three things that I have found over my research they are exactly the same thing with different ways of measuring and different ways of being experienced or understood. So my favorite, because I can read auras, which was like a light bulb in my experience when suddenly my empathic ability exploded from learning Reiki, that then what I was feeling from people could be presented in the most beautiful color around the person. And this is the aura. Everybody has an aura that comes to about here on a person, and that is then expressed in color. It's only specific people can feel it. You have to, this is like a going up in the spiritual scale, and I manifested this one. I really asked spirit and source to be able to see auras. It just sounded like the most magical thing, and God bless Great Spirit, Reiki, it unlocked. It's part of the mental health and spiritual journey. So the aura is showing the colors that we have ascribed metaphors and emotional experiences to. So like yellow is really happy, lively, bubbly, friendly, playful, and also determined. Like that's the like energy of what we have ascribed yellow to be, based on what it feels inside of our body. When we look at a yellow, what do we feel we get from that? So we've ascribed feelings. When we look at a blue is generally a low, sad, but calming, relaxed, peaceful color, a slow color. This is what we can feel like when we're looking at blue, etc., through the colors. And these can turn up in people's auras, and I can see them. But then we've got the electromagnetic biofield, and this is how they measure heat. And so they can measure the heat coming up from the body, and it can change in the frequency of the heat and the vibrations of the atoms of the matter that make up who we are as humans in the quantum physical realm that we are. We have vibrations within our entire body radiating off of us, creating this frequency that then just sort of dissipates into the air about here, sort of thing. We are frequency and vibrations. Wibble wobble. And so then we've got microbiomes. Now, the microbiome is stating in biology that we are made up of 50 trillion cells of bacteria. 50 trillion, not billion, not million, trillion. And these cells are constantly in a cycle of creation and regeneration and death. In spirituality, this understanding that we have life, we have death, and then we have rebirth. Our cells are constantly being born, dying, and being reborn. And as they're dying, they're leaving our body and they're evaporating into the air. And this is part of who we are. It's still part of our body. They're still with us, but they all leave at about the same space. And this is, they've proven that these cells will be, dying cells will be based off of what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you're experiencing, and what you're going through. They have memory. Our cells have memory, and they continue to have memory as they're leaving our body. So if you can imagine, we can't see them, we can't touch them, we can't interact necessarily with them until we get into the presence of someone else, and we come into this close proximity, And you think, oh my god, they're in my personal space, man, I don't like it, I don't like it. And you realize that that's because your cells are touching. Oh yeah. Well, a bit more creepier, your dead cells are touching. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. So these three expressions are all in a contrast saying the same thing, that we have, where our physical body ends is not where our energetic body ends. And vibrations, colors, dying cells, they're all surrounding us, which is a way, or the way, of how people can feel what you're feeling, in the same way as looking at your body and looking at your facial expressions, your tone in your voice and what you're doing. Like, that's the nonverbal communication. But there's also this, you can just be sat with someone and they don't have to be doing anything, they don't have to be talking to you, they don't have to be moving, but you can feel something from them. And this is how we get more into the empathic abilities section, or the empath ability section, and the clairsentience is when you can just feel without the communications. This is also, so I said before that this is the a spiritual gift that comes from the doing the mental health journey. This is the, what I feel like is an understanding that to get to a spiritual journey requires an understanding of the mental health and navigating through your mental health. And it just seems like the logical explanation of life is that you have the psychology, you have the mental health, the trauma, the understanding of yourself scientifically to navigate to understanding yourself spiritually. And it's like peeling back the layers of an onion, you know? At the edge you've got your physical, I got hands, I got a head, I got shoulders, I got fingers. And then you go in a little deeper, one layer down, and you're like, cool, I have a brain, I have lungs, I've got a heart, and these do things. And shit, they've given me some pain, they've given me some shit in the past, and I've got some trauma, I've got some suffering, I've got, my head hurts, my brain hurts. Why does my brain hurt? Why does my brain hurt? And why does my heart hurt? Why do my lungs hurt when I breathe? Why does my legs make pain when I stand up? Like, why do these things? And there's psychology. Psychology has an answer, and it's got some wonderful therapeutic systems to helping understand and navigate the thought processes of and the patterns of how we exist and why we exist and what we're doing. And then, but then, like, where does the feeling come in? It's all been very logical and cognitive based, thinking based. It's all about thinking and your thoughts of the patterns of your behavior and your thoughts on your feelings and how does that make you feel. But it doesn't necessarily explain the full range of feeling or the full range of emotion that can come from being an empath or from being autistic or from having, you know, some pretty wild mental health situations. And even when they have explanations for wild mental health situations, it still doesn't necessarily feel like it's right. Like my there's an inner guidance system within inside me. There's something a bit more. There's something extra that's being missed, or the full scope of me is not fully understood until I got to the spiritual journey of finding this extra connectivity, this extra sense of being, this extra sense of knowing how I actually fit in the world. And I don't need to do anything to actually fit in the world, because I can feel the trees, I can feel my soul, I can feel spirit, I can feel what I need and where I'm going. And that's been a really big, exciting part of the journey. But in order to get to this increased connectivity of like looking into the sun, sunset, sunrise, I have good eyes. I've played with them looking into the sun, but looking at the sun or the sunset, looking at the stars, and feeling like there's so much more than getting this sense of like almost the aura of the sun surrounding me, and feeling the energy of the sun or the energy of the moon connecting to my hands and feeling it vibrate in my hands, cells dying in my hands that I can cup them, I can bring them, and I can hold them to myself. This understanding of Reiki and energy, that everything is energy and life force, and even more so when you put you ascribe your thoughts into the whole situation. Your thoughts have so much energetic power that, you know, your perspective changes everything. Which is the whole part of this process as well. Like if you change your perspective on empathy, on the emotional expression, on understanding emotions, on understanding this energy that we've got, that's when you see and feel a lot more. My brief like quantum mechanics, quantum physics understanding is that when you observe something, when you observe it, it changes. So when you observe and you understand things in a deeper way, it changes to become what you can see, or it changes to adapt to you based on what you're seeing and what you're thinking. So when you can observe, when you observe something and it changes, this is the process of, or a description of, how you can understand your trauma and how you can understand the pain that is in your body. If you think about that, you've never processed, say, a trauma of a car crash. You never process it, but this trauma of the car crash is in your body, and you don't know it's there. You just have mild reactions to things every now and again. You don't notice it's there. You have seemingly no side effects or experiences of the fact that you have been in a car crash. And it's not until you do therapy that you realize that actually that pain in your neck that keeps coming back every now and again, that was from a whiplash. And that is also from a tension every time you get in the car, which you don't necessarily realize because life is so busy and so chaotic that everything keeps happening. And you don't realize that maybe the tension in the neck is also caused by that fear that wasn't processed, this understanding that it was freaking scary. You thought you were going to die, and the constriction around your throat, that maybe it's actually, you don't realize that this has maybe got you to talk less at work or in other situations where you would have responded with loads of opinions and having a great time, or a laugh or a joke, that like actually suddenly you're not, but you don't entirely notice because there's so many other things going on in the world. But it's not until you start going through and trying to unpack the trauma of the car crash, going into it, observing it in a new light, in a different way, that's when the fear and these other tiny little symptoms become clearer, that they become more and more connected, that who you are has or was actually changed by the trauma. And it's been so subtle, it's been so insignificantly expressed that you haven't noticed it. And this is sort of a part of how we go from being a child that is a complete beautiful spirit and experience that we are, into being someone that's got a lot of pain and suffering. And it's just, as we move along the way, as we move along our life, we just pick up things, and the life is filled with lots and lots of trauma, lots of pain, lots of individual situations that are causing us to have little additions to trauma again and again and again, that just builds up. And it's really hard to notice and be aware of what is actually creating your existence. Is it trauma, or is it healing, or is it a combination of both? Like, what is... But there's sort of really only an avenue of trauma or healing that contributes to your expression. And I wonder, as I say that, how true that is. But it feels like maybe there's one more in the middle that is your original spirit. Your original spirit, trauma brought on by society, and healing brought on by society and yourself. Trauma from self and society, healing from self and society. And it's what you do with either of these. So the trauma that we get, it's not our fault. It's never our fault. But it is our responsibility. This is the favorite new phrase of the day and age, is it is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. And it sucks. It sucks donkey bollocks. But to progress in the feelings of mental health and understanding yourself and knowing who you are and coming back to your primary source of spirit and having that be who you are more often, that is such an aim to be. Such a joy to just feel your experience and expression of yourself, rather than feeling anger, sadness, confusion. And that's where we want to go. And so to get through to the spiritual side, or to navigate through the mental health, to navigate this world, is a process of unlearning trauma. So coming back to the empaths with trauma and with this baggage of unconscious experiences of pain and suffering that they're not aware of in their everyday lives, like as I explained with the person who may not make as many jokes as they did before the trauma, or they have more fear. Like, if these can go completely unnoticed. They make sense in my example when I'm talking about them, but they can go completely unnoticed, that there even has been a change at all, because life does a lot of stuff. And we don't notice things. So for an empath who's got trauma and baggage, and this is the entire reason why I wanted to make this video, and I started thinking about the way that I could share these things, was that an empath with trauma who senses that someone else is feeling something, they will project what they are feeling onto that person and say, I'm an empath, I know what's going on for your experience of your life because I'm an empath. And this is when we get into really pained descriptions and misrepresentations of spirituality, of empathy, of empaths, because of unexpressed, repressed, unknown, misidentified trauma. So and I have an example I had a friend at university, and my expression was that I had been having a good morning. I think like a couple of little things had gone wrong, but I was really confident in myself that I was like, yeah, I'm going to deal with those. Yeah, there's nothing to worry about. They're not a problem. They've upset me a bit, but I don't need to worry about them. I know it will sort itself out. So like I had this pain, but I was calm and content about it. And I go and meet my friend, and she's really excited to see me. It's like, hi, how are you? And I go, yeah, I'm okay. And she goes, no, you're not. And I was shocked. I was like, yeah, I am. What's going on? She's like, you didn't come and say hi to me really excitedly. You didn't do loads of things. You didn't do stuff. And I was like, but I'm okay. She's like, no, you're not okay. She was adamant that I was not okay, and that there was something wrong with me, and that it was and that I needed to tell her why I wasn't okay. And I was like, but I am okay. Like, I really, really am okay. And what this was saying to me was that she was projecting feelings of hurt and anxiety, that I hadn't done things that I had done before. Like coming to say hello and being super excited to see her, because she had empathized. So what happened? She had empathized with me that there was something wrong, and there was, like, my full honest expression, which I went and I told her a little while later. It's like, yeah, there was something that was troubling me, and that's why I had more thoughts going through my head, and I had more things going on, but I was okay. My honest expression was I was okay. I was dealing with it. I had it under control. I didn't feel like I needed to share anything. It just made me a little different. And her expression was showing me that, that she was projecting. She had taken that little feeling that I was different, and she had changed it in her mind to be something that was related to her. And so she had empathized with me like 90% correctly. No, more like 80% correctly, that there was something else that had been going on in my system, but she had interpreted it 100% incorrectly, because she interpreted it based on herself and not on me, which is when we will base our interpretations in empathy on other people based on ourselves, when we haven't dealt with trauma, when we haven't dealt with our own baggage, our own experience. We'll interpret the other person's stuff based on our own. We will project our own onto them, even though we can feel something and the feeling may be correct, but the interpretation of it can be wrong. And this, I think, is incredibly important for people to understand, because how much better will it be if people can go around and say, I feel something, but what is it? Let me understand you. Let me enjoy you. Let me learn from you. What is it that's going on? And ask the questions. It is so important and special to ask questions, to help people learn themselves, to feel like they are being cared for, and that they are being explored and appreciated, and that people want to understand them. Like it feels amazing when people want to understand you. Absolutely amazing. And another example, I have more examples of other people than I do myself, based on the fact that I have been very, very quiet about my empathy and really not trusting it, and not trusting myself. And that's been a huge part of my journey, is just not trusting myself or what I feel from people. So I've just ignored it, but not anymore. So this other example was my supervisor, and like I had been doing lots of work, I was doing really well, but I'd also kind of only just started doing the lots of work, and like the week before I'd been pretty relaxed and not really doing a huge amount. And I was like, and sometimes, it can take me a while to pick myself up and get myself into the right, let's do the working, let's get going, let's do stuff. It can take me a while to get into that standpoint. And I just got there. I was really excited. And she comes to me, and I was just like, I'm gonna work after hours. I'm gonna go until go for like an hour or something before dinner, and then go home because I just feel a bit behind. And she was like, make sure, well, is that the fact that you need to give yourself a break though, and maybe you're working too hard, and like that's not good for you, and you've got to give yourself a break. It's like you're going to cause yourself a problem. And like I got this a bit of a lecture, and I was like, yeah, but that's not really what's happening. And I couldn't quite explain that wasn't what was happening. I'd had loads of breaks, but actually that was, if I look at her, that was very much a big part of her experience and her situation, which I thought was another interesting standpoint, is that it felt like an understanding or an empathy understanding of me and where I was and what I was doing, that there was something not quite right in my system, that they could feel that there was something that she wanted to counsel, she wanted to give advice for, she wanted to help me for, but that, she didn't get the right interpretation to tell me. Whereas if she had asked me, why are you working late? What's going on? Do you need something? She would have gotten a different answer from me. She would have gotten the answer that, like, I really want to work. I feel really motivated. I feel like I need to, I want to do more. And I am also in the space where I've had a lot of breaks. I've had a lot of rest. This is my time to go. That could have been a different expression and a different situation for us to have, but it turned into, this, and I think my point is that this empathy situation can turn from, about the person that's struggling, it can turn from them to being about the empath, or the person with the empathy, without either of the people knowing as well. And this can cause the person who needs the help or who's having the issue, for the empaths to confuse and disrupt and change the experience of that person into something that wasn't what they were experiencing in the first place. Which comes to another point, is that there are also empaths, and this has been a huge part for me, who absorb others, who feel like they absorb others' experiences and their feelings and their emotions without needing to. And this, I think, is a very strong autism, maybe sometimes ADHD expression, but mainly autism. And it's this feeling I've heard from a few beautiful autistic people. It's this feeling that you are you're just with someone and they suddenly become you, or you become them. You walk away with their feelings. You walk away feeling like them. You walk away with expressions of theirs, and you walk away feeling less of yourself and like you have just mixed up your personalities together from being in close proximity. And this is, there's too much sensitivity, too much too many mirror neurons in trying to navigate and understand what it means to be social and how to care for the other people. I heard a lot in my time that this was because I didn't have enough boundaries between myself and the others, and creating this like emotional, spiritual glass egg of protection, light egg, really, really, really helped me feel like just from having that visualization that other people's auras or biomes or fields were not going to come into contact with me through using my mind. Through using the power of the focus of your thoughts, of your intentions, of what you want for yourself. With creating that for myself, that did help, but it didn't always help. And what I really think that is more of the situation is less about boundaries and sort of standing up for myself as such, or is projection. It's the opposite. So people, there's, everybody is different. Everybody needs to take what fits to them and their experience, and no one experience, no one pill, no one anything fits everyone. So for me, I feel like it was not enough projection. So other people, when they're empathic and they like, I'm ascribing my situation to you, they're having too much projection. They're feeling, but they're projecting too much, and they're not taking the time to process and leave their baggage of trauma at the door to be able to focus on the other person and really, really help them and tap into the full extent of the empathic ability, which is beautiful. And the fact that they want to do that is beautiful. The fact that you want to help and support someone else is beautiful. And the main point for that is just to, when you feel it, ask questions. Ask the question, what is going on for you? Are you okay? What can I do? Blah, 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 blah. But for the people that are absorbing, and this is something that you just sort of experience, like there's a big thing with autism people where you're looking into each other's eyes and it feels like you're downloading their soul. Yeah. And that is part of absorbing the energy and empathy of the other person, or even just being near them, or having a really intense conversation, or having really lots and lots of fun, and you come away and you're feeling like you have taken on parts of their personality. This needs projection. I really feel like this is partly because, and certainly in my experience, I didn't do enough things myself with other people to say, I am here. And in a way, it is a part of boundaries, but I needed more projection. I needed to say, I am here. This is me. Blah, 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 blah. Me. instead of going you. And so to have, and I've learned recently doing a yoga course that having projection doesn't have to be putting myself on other people or talking about myself or doing loads of things about me. It can be doing things I enjoy, and it can be chanting, and chanting in my head as simple as Om, over and over again, Om, 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 like it sounds like I'm eating food, is teaching me that my thoughts are coming out. It's like my thoughts are coming out while someone else is talking. So while someone else is talking, I can be doing my ohms, and I can listen, and I can om at the same time. And then I'm not absorbing what they're saying because I've got this small amount of projection and focus. It's like a little internal stimulation, little internal stim going on, that it can help me focus on the other person and feel the other person whilst maintaining a sense of myself. So it's also this understanding that it is of boundaries, but it's not boundaries in the way of I need to tell you who I am or what I'm doing, or I need to tell or do anything with you to express myself. I just need to have more of me coming out. I just need to have more of me being expressed. And then that's when I'll absorb less. It's because I'll know more of who I am. And it comes back to the mental health journey as well. When I know more of who I am, and my spiritual journey, when I know I'm more aware and awakened to who I am, that's when I'll be less inclined to absorb and more inclined to have a balance between projecting and absorbing, and to always remember to ask questions. Understanding pain and the pain that we are experiencing, which is all trauma is. It's all the roundabouts that we've got is to how to know what the trauma is, how to know where it is, how to know to move through it is through pain. Through understanding the pain, through going as if the pain is the black hole, going in it. Go all the way in it and hug it, love it, care for it, understand it, nurture it. If pain was a child or a cat, and the cat of your body is called pain, and what do you do to pain? I know I would cuddle it, squish it, love it, feed it, do whatever I can to get that squishy little kitty pain face happy, because cats are just the best thing in the world. So it's increasing the sensitivity to it and going into the depths of what pain is, to know your own baggage, to be able to move through it, and then you can sense more when pain is coming. You can understand more of how to stay away from pain, how to continue to know your pain and how much you've got and what it is that you're experiencing, when you then go to someone else and you want to understand them and their weird as subconscious reactions to you that feel weird or they feel painful, and like you're not making jokes in the example I did before about the neck, or consistently telling someone that they're not okay when actually they said they were okay and they truly meant it. Like, to understand these weird little things that other people do that are painful, it's not projection. It's putting all of the trauma that you have, all of the pain that you got, to one side, to empathize and understand with them why are you doing this? And actually, in a continuation of my friend going, why are you not okay? Why won't you tell me you're not okay? Was that it took me some time, and then I was like, I had to ask her. I was like, what is going on for you? Why do you think that I'm not okay? Worked out that it's because she felt self-conscious that I had changed how I was towards her, and that she had a lot of anxiety towards friends, and she felt lonely, and she felt like she was having a really hard time. And this is where I eventually got us to, in understanding that that's why she was reacting towards me. It's because she had all of these things going on for her, and it wasn't about me at all. It was about her. And this is how with the empathy and empaths, you can get caught in such a butting heads energetically type situation where you're like, I feel something from you and I don't like it, and there's something wrong there. And then the other person's like, well, I'm feeling something from you and I don't like that, and there's something wrong there. And you're like, okay, but now we're just feeling bad about each other and about stuff, and we're picking up on the fact that we've maybe just spilt the milk this morning, or one of us spilt the milk and the other one just had a shitty conversation, but actually maybe we're okay. We just kind of need to drop the situation. And it's just navigating that, even though, I said like nonverbal communication, feeling empathy from other people is beautiful, it can be really weird. And I'm pretty sure I felt this expression happen a few times, and it's just like, oh my God. Yeah, we need to come back to the verbal communication. Otherwise we're going to go down a rabbit hole, because we haven't learned completely how to understand empathy and empathic abilities, which needs education. You need to educate. We need to educate to learn about feeling, because otherwise we're just going to keep butting heads, and the empaths are going to feel the shit from one, and the other is going to be feeling the fact that the first one feels shit towards them, so then they're feeling shit towards them, and it just keeps going. And so we need education, and empathy needs education to learn about not just how empaths talk, how empathic abilities are strong, all of the things that I've mentioned, how we are empaths, how we empathize, how we use empathy, but that this can also be taught to other people. People can be taught to feel from others. If people are taught, don't rely on what I'm saying. Just have a look at how I move. What can you feel? What does that say? What does it say? Question yourself. Question me. Question. Ask. See what's going on. And empathy needs to be taught now more than ever, because we are in a society that teaches analgesia. They teach analgesia, which is pain numbing, empathy numbing, experiences to numb and distract you from who you are and what you are capable of. Your spiritual gifts, you're keeping you in the trauma, mental health, rotating, anxiety producing bubble of the rat race, of just keep the consistency of the trauma going. Don't become aware of it. Don't entice it. Don't observe it. Don't change it. Don't transform it. Just keep going. Just keep going. Don't figure out who you are. That's fine. And because when you don't do that, when you get stuck and you don't come through the trauma, you don't come through any of the stuff, you don't work out how to find empathy, you don't work out how to feel, you don't work out how to change this analgesia, the not feeling. This is when you get society numbing and you don't have empathy for another. When you're more numb to care for another human, which is how you get people like Trump. which is how you get people that don't want to care for the rest of the planet. This is how you get the people that are in the 1% who have so much money that they could change the entire world and they could save the entire world, but they don't have the empathy for it. This is where the empathy needs education, to learn how the environment that we're in has an energy, it has an empathy, it has an expression of vibration, like the electromagnetic biofield. The environment has a vibration, it has a frequency. The aura and microbiome of food has a vibration and a frequency. This is the same for a tree and for plants. They have an aura, a frequency, they have a microbiome. Everything has energy that is connecting to us, that we can empathize with, we can appreciate, we can enjoy, we can show compassion and kindness to. Every animal. And teaching this, and I was in the head of a prestigious university, Symbiosis International University in India, that I was privileged to meet the head of the entire school, who started the school to help people, help international students in India be more comfortable, to show more compassion, more kindness, and to treat the whole world as one family. And he said, I asked him, how can we teach this empathy? Because that's what he said. How can we teach this empathy? And he told me, he's like, start with plants. Start with nature. Start with the entire reason that we exist, the entire reason that we're here. The earth, the air, the sky, the fire of the planet, the earth, the fire in our bellies, the sun that keeps us warm, and the water that we need to function to keep us alive. Come back to nature to understand empathy. Summary: we are empaths. We are empathic creatures. We are empathetic creatures. We empathize when we can feel what someone else is going through. And we feel it through our aura, our electromagnetic biofield, and our microbiome. And what we're feeling is based on our nonverbal communication, which makes up 80% of how we actually communicate. That is all subconsciously processed. And what else that is subconsciously processed is our trauma. And what we don't realize of how we're reacting is based on trauma, our spirit, and our healing journeys. So when you're empathizing with someone and you feel that something is coming from them, whether it's a little bit or whether it's strong, like from an empath or clairsentient being with more mirror neurons than the average person, that's when you gotta leave that trauma. You gotta be aware of the trauma and the baggage and the pain that you are carrying, to not project it onto the other person. That yes, you can feel something. You will. Everybody can feel things from people. How you interpret it is very, very subject to baggage in yourself. And until you deal with your own baggage completely, you will never fully understand what someone else is going through and be able to interpret it completely correctly until you deal with your own baggage and you don't project. So, and this is then separate for those that absorb from other people without trying, without meaning to. We need more projection, and we need to even just chanting was talking or doing more things that is more enjoyable to us, that isn't numbing. No smoking, no doing that stuff. That's not what we need, because that is an analgesia. And that is prohibiting us from being the truly empathic beings that we are, which is needed for world change, world love, spreading kindness and compassion, treating others better, which is what the world ultimately needs. And it's what will help us protect ourselves. And you can always have a light egg around you. It's a great meditation. Highly recommend. Look it up. Light egg for protection. Yeah. And where do we start? Teaching to be more empathic. Going outside, being with the trees, being with nature, being in love with your plants or your animal friends. Be with the things that can't do 20% verbal communication. And that's how you'll feel it. That's how you'll feel it. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you. If you've made it all the way through, thank you very much. This is my first video. I hope to make many, many more videos. I got so much to share that I think is different, that I think is special, that I think is an amalgamation of psychology, scientific research, and channeled spiritual, intuitive guidance and wisdom. Namaste.